But I tell you that story to let you know that as things are unfolding in Canada with indigenous peoples and with the idlenomore movement, I have a bias. And it's the bias that Stanley and I shared as boys. I would like to see justice come out of it. So I've decided I'd like to give you two examples of what I'm going to call persons of influence. And the first one you might guess is Teresa Spence. A woman, perhaps a little bit younger than some of you, maybe a little bit older than some of you, but quite an ordinary woman. Not somebody who you might expect great things of. And if you've been through the season of Christmas, you know that God often begins in obscure and unexpected places. And I'd like to suggest that perhaps Teresa Spence is one of those unlikely and unexpected persons that God is using just now to bring something to our attention. I'd like to notice for you that Teresa Spence has decided to fast. And that's a tradition that belongs to the Christian church as to most other faith traditions in the history of the world. Fasting is a way of setting out to accomplish something which involves diminishing your physical strength. The Apostle Paul speaks again and again about the outer man waning and the inner waxing, the person. So a fast is a spiritual discipline. And as the physical person gets weaker and weaker, the spiritual person becomes stronger and stronger. And perhaps you can think of the names of some persons in history who have used fast very effectively. You'll certainly think of Mahatma Gandhi and others as well. So I'd like you to notice that in our present situation, there's this person, Teresa, who wants to do something about justice, and she wants to do it in a good way. That's how indigenous people like to talk about things. They like to do it in a good way. And what she has asked for is a conversation with another influential person in our Canadian social economy, and that is our Prime Minister, Stephen Harper. Now, Stephen Harper is a man of power. We are all observing that he knows how to get his agenda on the table. He knows how to find people who will support him in his agenda, and he knows how to move his agenda forward. So we have two persons, one a political person, and one, I'm going to say, a spiritual person. Now, I don't wish to imply that Mr. Harper is not a spiritual person, because I know that in Quebec City, not so many years ago, maybe it was last year or the year before, he told reporters that he considered himself to be answerable to God and not to history. That's quite a declaration for a politician to make in the modern world. And it was a small moment, and perhaps even an inconspicuous moment, but I was one of the persons who heard him say that, and since then I've been watching, because I'm a theologian, and wondering how what Mr. Harper is doing fits in with what God has in mind. And one of the clues to what God has in mind is given to us in the psalm that we read together. Because the Bible is very much concerned with leadership, the shepherd, the king, the politician, those who are entrusted with the well-being of the people and the land. So the psalm speaks about the anointed one, the one who is chosen to bear this responsibility, being someone who seeks out the good of the poor, somebody who seeks out the good of the oppressed, somebody who seeks out the good of those who are lost along the way. We see all of this, and we will as the gospel begins to unfold, as the baby Jesus grows up. So Stephen Harper, and I'm just using him because he's the one just now who's at the center of our attention, if he is living his life in the sight of God, has an obligation to be the kind of leader that God would say, yes, that's my guy. Now this is where my bias comes in. I suspect at this time in our history as a people in this country and on this planet that Teresa Spence might come closer to satisfying the desire of God for what good leadership is. You see, Teresa is a chief among the Cree people. And if you listen carefully, what is she seeking? She's seeking equal treatment for all people in Canada. Not some people treated one way and other people treated a different way. Teresa Spence is seeking the health of the planet. Those of you who know anything about the Cree people know that they speak in terms of all my relations. So the Cree people care about water because they know water gives them life. They care about air because they know air gives them life. Now we know that it's very difficult for the Cree people to live according to their deep historic traditions and values because they have been so badly used over the last 400 or 500 years by persons who thought themselves superior in just about every way. So I would like to suggest that at this point in time, from my point of view, we might do well to listening to voices like that of Teresa Spence. You will notice if you watch your television that there are many people in Canada listening, paying attention, and acting. So I encourage you to not simply take things at face value, but to dig around in them a little bit in your spare time. Ask yourselves questions and try to understand how it is that God might be in this time through this woman and through this people, because it's not the Cree people alone, but it's all of the indigenous people in Canada. And it's not the indigenous people in Canada alone, but it's the indigenous people in all of the Americas, and it's starting to spread to all of the world. And indigenous people are the ones who have suffered most by our white imperial arrogance. That is to say, right now there are people in high places who don't care two bits about indigenous people. What they care about is oil, copper, gold, etc. That's what they want. And I'm sorry to say it seems to be that Mr. Harper is on the side of those people. And the strangest thing to me is why he cannot find it in his heart to cross the little bridge, to spend 5 minutes with this lady and just sit with her and say, how can I help? So I'm hoping that you will become enlightened people and do what you can in the world through all of your relations to bring this hope into being.